Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is host Omar. This is a wonderful, another exciting episode. I want to show you with the flyer who do we have today. We're going to talk about education from a wonderful person, Dr. Hoa Pham, all the way in California, Compton. She recently retired, and we're going to talk about education and how it changed over the years. This is going to be an interesting topic. You guys can view us on LinkedIn and also on the YouTube channel, Live with Omar number 2, where you can see all of my programming. Let's go ahead and bring our special guest, Dr. Hoa Pham, all the way from California. Here she is with some applause on my end. Good evening. It is 7:35 your time. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful program. How are you today?
Good, good. I'm great. Thank you very much for having me. I'm even greater because, as you mentioned, I just retired, so I'm thoroughly enjoying my retirement right now.
That's awesome. That's always great to do. What are you spending your time with? And then after that, just talk to us a little bit about yourself and where you worked and what you did a bit.
Okay, so I just recently retired, and now I'm mostly traveling, and I still see a lot of my former students, and I help them with some of the things that whatever it is that they need. And then just recently, I've been asked to be a mentor for the city of LA, so I'm doing that. Um, and I'm just basically enjoying myself. And I feel like I owe that to myself. I've been in the field for about 32 years, I want to say. But really before that, because when I was younger, um, uh, I was a high school teacher,
Oh,
and
wow.
I didn't really like it that much. And so after just teaching for a year, I went to UT Austin, and then studied I lived in El Paso, and then I went to UT Austin and studied early childhood education. And my first semester, I knew that I liked it right away. So I changed into early childhood education instead of high school. And when I finished at UT, I moved to California. I want to say that's about 85, 84, 85. And I worked for some private preschools, and then after that, I worked at Santa Ana College, and that was a long time ago. So one semester I taught at their preschool. Then after that, they asked me to teach part time, and I did that for a number of years. And over the number of years, I did a lot of part time teaching, and then I did full time teaching, and then I went back to school, got my doctorate, and then did some more full time teaching. And so here I am. And you were mentioning about how education has changed. And so I want to talk about specifically about early childhood education. And that's the field that I'm in.
Perfect.
So back in when I
I,
was still in Texas, um, in early childhood education, we were just starting to talk about computers in the early childhood classroom. Now we know that it's ubiquitous and everybody has it in the classroom now. But that's one of the biggest changes. I think the focus has always been on play. And I think what's happened sometimes is that there's such a focus on making sure the children read and write. And I don't think I'm anti academic at all, but I do think that in early childhood education, you have to have a good foundation of play. They need to know how to sit down. They need to have a good attention span. They need to know how to talk to another person. Um, and so all that in preschool to make them sit down and write their names and know their numbers and know their colors. Even before all that, they need to be able to just be able to talk to somebody and be able to pull up their pants and take care of their own needs and feed themselves and not be afraid of the child next to them because a lot of children aren't used to playing with other children. So um, You need to help them focus on their attention span so that they can be able to sit down and develop those skills instead of right away. I think there's too many people just focusing so much on making them be able to read, write, say their name. And I mean, say their name is fine and know who they are is fine. But sitting there and making them write their names and making sure they know their colors and their numbers before they even had a chance to even sit down for 5 minutes, which is
Oh,
most important, you
so
know.
that usually is around age 4 or 5 when they're doing that. Is that what you say? Where
Yes,
they're going
even
to
even
the,
starting at 2, having them just being able to talk to you and just being with you and then focusing on something for 5 minutes. And even at 2 years old, even as a baby, we could read to them at the very beginning. And that's how you start to help them with their attention span. And so we often say that babies, you they can't read, but I think you hear this on commercials on TV all the time. Says, "Do you talk to your baby? Sing to your baby?" Those are things that are the very pre-academic skills that you want to build on, even when they're very young babies. And then as they become toddlers, you want to take them and talk to them. And when we say talk, I think a lot of people think talk like the what we're doing right now, question answer kind of thing. But it's not. It's talking to them and then even going to their part, say, "Do you like the room? Do you like the room color?" And then of course they're not gonna, they're two. They're not gonna say, "Yeah, I like it," but they're gonna when you just hear them gurgling and saying, "Oh, well," you consider that the precursors of language because they're having that back and forth just as you would when you're having a conversation. So
absolutely.
then give and
Yeah,
take.
that's great. I want to recognize some of the people here, good friends of ours. My good friend James here, he says hello and yes to the program. Also, Angelica, I guess she's also in the early childhood, and she's asking you, I'm so glad to see you. Where in childhood education? I'm in Head Start. So she's in Head Start, and she's asking you, you're a university professor, so she's Head Start education. So that's interesting. Tell us more about that. Another friend here, whoop whoop, Omar, and Angelica's here. Important to talk and sing to your baby. So yeah, definitely, doctor. Those are some good points that you mentioned. Please elaborate more on that. Has education changed from when you started in the 80s until now when you recently retired in terms of that? I know children probably haven't changed and the way you're teaching them and the way you're educating mentally and physically as well. But what do you think? What have you seen as an educator?
Yes, Angelique, Angelica, I think. It is very important to talk to children and sing to children. Even at the beginning, when they're young babies, they may not be able to talk back to you, but just having that back and forth where they're gurgling and you're talking, that is that give and take. That is that turn taking, which is the very precursor of language. So you're not saying say blue, say white, say and we often think that that's how you teach children language, but really you teach children language by talking with them because in order to produce language, they need to hear language. So if you're talking to them constantly, then they are taking all of that in. And so it is definitely a back and forth. And isn't that what a conversation is, right?
Yeah,
I'm not going to constantly talk. Omar's going to talk, and then I'm going to talk. And so that is the very basic of conversation. And that's what you want to do with children. So when they just respond and they go, that is a response, right? So then you talk and then they go, and then you go, yes, I know, I like that color too. So that's how you start language with children.
exactly. No, those are good points, and that also reminds me of my nephew who just turned 9 months. And so, what we usually do, point or say something, and now he's reacting to stuff. For example, when we say cutie to him, he smiles and he crawls to you, knowing that you are acknowledging that he's a cute baby. See,
Yes,
so those are good points.
yes,
So pointing to an item, let's say it's blue, and telling him this is blue, and he looks at it, he looks at you, and he acknowledges that's the color of it, or this mic is black. He comes back and then he can, so at times kids, they're so smart, and I'm seeing how this little young wonderful baby is growing up and developing and having these thoughts and how he's growing up. It's amazing, definitely amazing.
Yes, and Angelica is saying that she was at Head Start, and that is great because that's preschool from 3 to 5. And I'm sure you know early Head Start is even earlier. So, for example, Omar, your nephew, who's not maybe not 3 yet, but at home, what your sister could do is read to the baby already, and then when the baby points to something, then you acknowledge that he's pointing to something. And then you, when you're reading, always read and then move your hand so that they get that left to right orientation. So
Uh-huh.
that's the very beginning of reading. So they start noticing the first thing, the precursor to reading is recognizing the pictures, right? So when you get the pictures and they're very easy, there's just very few words. Children learn to associate that picture with the words you're saying, and then as you point to it, and then as you go across and you point to the words as you're reading, they get that left to right, and then they start realizing those little squiggly lines aren't squiggly lines, but they're words. And so what you're saying and what those squiggly lines are words, and they get that connection. So you, it's never too early. I even believe that it starts intramural. My niece is having a baby pretty soon, and I'm sending her books and telling her to read already to the baby even before the baby's born. And then right now, Omar, you could read to your nephew, or your niece, and
Nephew.
already start reading. Yeah, your nephew already. So it starts very, very early.
That's awesome. I mean, even at 9 months, yeah, I do hear stories of when even the baby's in the belly of the mom, and whatever she does, he gets some of that and hears and he tries to do that. I mean, let's say a bad example: the mom is smoker, he might have the bad vibe. If the mom is eating healthy food, he might have some healthy vibes in there. Absolutely. So that's why he's
Definitely.
coming out very vibrant, very smart, very active at 9 months, and he's probably going to start walking soon. That kind of thing. So good to know.
Yeah.
I had no idea that even at an early age, 9 months or 10 months, we can go ahead and start reading to him and pointing at it as we're reading. That's a good idea. I definitely can do that next time I see him. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And
Beautiful.
when you go on a walk with the child, just to the supermarket, to the park, or anywhere, if you start talking to them and saying, "Oh, um, you want some cereal?" And when we say baby talk, by the way, that word baby talk is often referred to the way the baby talks, but really, baby talk is when you go, but
Yeah.
you want to talk natural, but you want to use simple vocabulary and not really complicated. Like right now, I'm talking to you and I'm just talking endlessly, right? But you
Yeah.
want that stop and that stop and start. And I see Angelica says that you have babies and toddlers. And yes, I think when I started in the 80s, we just had Head Start from 3 to 5. Then it became early Head Start. And then now Head Start encompasses family child care. So that is one of the changes, right? So now they have infants and toddlers, they have family child care. It used to be only half day programs, and now it's full day programs. So those are some of the changes that I think are good for parents, you know.
I wanted
Um,
to ask Angelica, is she in education, like teaching in a college or in a high school? I know I've seen her around, but I'm not sure if she teaches in a high school or a college. Because she did mention she's doing early childhood education, is where she's at. Similar, but maybe high school or
she
college.
said Head Start. Head Start is a preschool, I
Preschool.
believe.
Oh, she
Yeah,
did say that? I
yeah,
see that. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. You get a little exposure to
A-
kids
And
and that.
and uh, and Angelica, when I'm not saying get tired, but when you want to, if you want to, because there's many ways that you could use your early childhood experience. So if you decide you want to continue to teach preschool, that's great. But what I did was I did that, and then I also taught um, uh, part-time at the community college. Yeah, and so you're a mentor teacher. That's great. So see, that is kind of uh you could use it as a career ladder. So mentor teacher, then you get your master's, and then you teach part-time, you teach full-time, and then you have your choice of whether you want to be at the community college setting or the university setting. And I chose to be in the community college. So most of my teaching career is at the community college level. I do have a couple years at the university level, but those are more part time rather than full time. All my full
So
time experience.
you mentioned that you were also teaching in high school as well. How does that compare to teaching high school students compared to college student, university students?
I think I was 23 when I got my first uh, teaching position as a high school teacher, and
Mhm.
I probably looked like a high school student myself. So
Yeah.
I felt, this is a personal thing, but I felt like they didn't respect me. And so I didn't really like it. Um, and I only did it for 1 year, and I was in Texas at the time. And it was a good experience in terms of getting that experience. But it also led me to believe, to know that I didn't want high school teaching. And I
Uh,
took one class. I took one class of early childhood education,
mhm.
fell in love with it right away, and knew that was the thing. So sometimes I always tell my students, I said, you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you kiss the prince, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
you do many different things, and then you realize, hey, this is what I like. And now I'm at the end of a 32-year career, and
Hmm.
I don't teach in the community college anymore. And I'm still searching for what I want to do. I think I might want to teach in the prison. When I was 25, they asked me to do that. I was too scared at 25. I didn't really understand, and
Yeah.
I was scared, and I didn't really want to. So I said no, and I just taught part
That's a
time at the community
that's a
college. But
big doctor. That's a big change, going from the high school to the college and that. But the question too is, did they attain the students in college or high school? Did they care more about the material? Because I know in high school they're kind of just wanted to graduate, they want to not care. But then in college level, some of them are probably moms, right, or their dads, and then they
yes.
want to attain some of the material and like, oh, this is useful and I can use it. Have you seen that? Is there a student that you can remember that you can remember? What do you think?
Y- Yeah, yes, definitely. I have many students that I just met with the day before yesterday to help
Mm.
them with their professional development and get them their permits and things. But permits are only the beginning. So after you even attain the highest level permit, the director permit, you still want to go on, get your AA, get your BS, get your MS, get your doctorate. Um, like I think that I might want to go back to school for a credential, not for early childhood, but for something else. And I don't think that you ever stop learning. I think when you start feeling like you know it all and you got all the knowledge, I think that's when you're in trouble because you never do. And
Yeah.
so even if you had a longer career, I've known people who are in it 40 years, and they still are doing something, and they're learning something else. I even thought about actually, for fun, I thought even going back to school and trying to get my culinary culinary certificate and see what I could cook up in the
Oh,
kitchen.
culinary. That's good. That's good. That's awesome. Yeah. That's well, so where do you get your education background from? Like, is it somebody from your family? You've always wanted to get this kind of education and help people out. Like for
I
me, I
think
did a little bit of the tutoring, a little bit of also the IT. I've always had this drive to help people out from my family and all that, the background and the giving. What would you say? Yeah.
I think that my mother, she was a single mom. So I lost my dad from the U.S. Vietnam War, and that was in 1964. So my mother was a single parent, and when she brought us up in America, she came with. We were a guest of the American government. And that was a long time ago in 1964, and then my father was killed, and so she stayed in America. So she took care of us, all of us, by herself as a single parent. But she always, whether it's a boy or a girl, um, everybody in the family, she always encouraged us. So so funny to say that I might be the loser of the family because everybody is a doctor or engineer or something like that. But I love teaching at the community college, and my family members, some of them teach at the university, and they always ask me to go over there on that side. But I really enjoy teaching community college, and I feel like the two focuses, community college and university, I think community colleges really, that the population out there, I think they're so highly motivated.
Oh, really?
Whereas at the university, they're motivated too, but either they're very highly motivated or they're just going because their parents want them to. So they're not as, um, I don't know.
Or they want to pass. They just want to graduate, get that
Yeah, yeah.
4 year degree or
So,
whatever.
but
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that they're not motivated. I would just say the two different are very, the two different populations are, let's say the person who's teaching there, in community college, there's more emphasis on teaching in the classroom, whereas at the university level, there's more emphasis on doing a lot of uh, um, uh, research and
Uh-huh.
trying to further the field. Whereas in the community college, there's more focus on trying to make sure that you teach well and that you have lots of activities to help the students be able to master the information. And you do that at the university level too. But I think a lot of the professors there are more focused on research. And that's very important because we want to learn about what the field has to offer. So the university teachers are more focused on research. And I think that's a good thing as well.
Oh, beautiful. I want to say hello to a good friend, Leslie Flowers, who was also on my game show as well. And she was on this program as well. So she's awesome, very wonderful person to be here. Thank you for her support. And yeah, you made some very good points here. We have about 8 minutes to go. We don't usually go over the 30-minute mark. And so, yeah, any last minute closing comments on the program today? It was. I'm glad you were able to make time for us today. You're a busy person, or not as busy now, right? But you're doing some traveling. But yeah, some last minute closing remarks here, Doctor.
Well, I just want to say to Angelica and anybody that's on here that if you're interested, if you're working with children and you're interested, I think that's great. I am too. I'm still, but there's many things that you can do also with your early childhood units, your development, your permits, your um, uh, uh, and you'll still be helping kids for the future. So let's say that you move on and you get your master's and you teach at the community college, you're still helping children because you're teaching the future generation of early childhood professionals who are going to be teaching children. So that impacts children when you're teaching the students who are going to be helping the children, you know. So
Excellent.
I just keep that in mind. There's many things that you could do with your early childhood units. You could also be a therapist, you know, lots of
Does
things,
that
I'm
also
sure.
go into play from your studies? A little bit of the mental part of the kids, or not too much?
Yeah,
What you did? Did
yeah.
you have
So
to do a
so
unit?
I think
Very- Yeah.
play is so important. It's the foundation. I think it's still the cornerstone of children's learning, even with all this focus on um, um, uh, this focus of trying to do academics and all that. I think play is still the foundation of how children learn. And so we were just talking about it today. I have this little UCLA group, and we're talking about math. And when you do math, you don't have to necessarily sit there and make them count. But if you go outside and you say, "Oh, look at that, how tall that tree is and
Yeah.
how short this flower is." So just looking at that is a math concept right now.
Oh,
And
perfect.
I see that your your viewer Angelica said she just wrote a children's book, and I
Yeah.
think that's great. I think that's a great idea. I would like to do that too. So I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many things that you could do when you're teaching young children, and you're the best author for children's books because you know what children think like, and so you know the kinds of stories that they will respond to, as opposed to somebody who's not that being in the English field is bad, but they have that background to write, but they may not necessarily know the thinking of children and what they like. Which is a funny story. My sister was just here and she left just like the day for yesterday. And I had picked out a book for her, and you may be familiar with the book. It's called Love You Forever. and she said, and she said she looked at it, she goes, "Oh, well, the pictures aren't cute, and the story kind of goes on," and I'm like, "Well, it is supposed to go on because it talks about the progression of when the little boy was a baby and then how the mother held him and sang to him and all that. And he remembered all that. So when the mother became old, he rocked her and started singing to her. So the progression of the little boy when he was a baby all the way to when he became an adult. And then when the mother became older, the roles were reversed. And that's the interesting storyline about that book. And she's like, but the pictures aren't cute and the words don't rhyme. And we've moved past Dr. Seuss and the Cat in the Hat. Not that that's bad, right? But it doesn't have to rhyme, right? And it doesn't have to be cutesy pictures, because there's so many other topics that encompass that. So anyway,
Yeah,
yes, that story makes me cry. I have two boys, so I love that story to death. And so I'm trying to explain it to my sister. She goes, but it doesn't rhyme. It doesn't have to rhyme.
that's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I
So,
appreciate you being here, Doctor. We can go on for another 30 minutes or maybe do a part two later. I know you're going to be doing a trip pretty soon to overseas, but it's awesome. Last minute closing words here, and I want to thank all our wonderful audience who participated more than I expected to show up here. I guess everybody's a night owl here. Like they like to be here at night. I'm more of a morning person. I was actually taping this morning earlier at 8 and 9 a.m. my time, but that's okay. I was like, I'll do it. I'll do it for Dr. Wah here, Doctor, who's a good friend of mine who I've known for a couple of years now. And so I said, let's do this now. And she agreed, and I appreciate that. Any last minute advice to our wonderful people about education? And
no, but I would like to encourage Miss Angelica, who just shared that she writes a story. She said she wanted to connect. So feel free, Mr. Omar, to give my email to anybody that would like it. I would love
sure,
to connect with you. And now I have lots of time to connect. So
exactly.
yes, I would really like that.
Exactly. That's awesome. Yeah. When you're right now retired, you have some time, but definitely I will have you connect, and they probably will see you on the LinkedIn profile there. They can connect with you. Your name is there with the same profile,
Yeah.
that's the same picture here as well. So basically, great to have you here, Dr. Wah, a retired educate teacher with a lot of experience. Would you say what about 30 years, 40 years experience?
32,
32.
32.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. All right, guys. Thank you again for participating in this program and joining us
Okay.
on the
All right.
stream here. If you guys
Thank
want
you
to
very much, Mr. Omar, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. You're awesome. Let me end the stream in three, two,